Unanimously, the groups that I speak to all believe, all know that our governments are out of control. Right, left, liberal, conservative. But everywhere I go, what do you think the most asked question I get is? How do we fix this? We have activist judges. We have governors that act more like monarchs than representatives of the people. We have sheriffs who blindly enforce laws. We have county commissioners and city councilmen and state legislators that simply ignore the people and trample the rights of their constituents. We have a Congress that seems more concerned about politics and special interests than the liberties of the people. How do we fix this? If we had been teaching history properly for the last 100 years, if we had been teaching the Constitution properly for the last 100 years, we wouldn't have that question. We wouldn't be where we are today, mind you. But we wouldn't have that question because we'd know exactly what to do. I started reading the Constitution itself and what it means. And I thought to myself, we weren't taught this in law school. We don't teach this in grade school. We don't teach this in high school. We don't teach this in college. These are things that anybody can get on their cell phone. They can read this. They can know this. Why is this information being hidden from us? Why aren't we being taught? And I want to teach you, to equip you, so you can know the truth about limited government power. To inspire you. Einstein said it a different way. He said if you do the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, that's the definition of insanity. It's time for us to stop doing the same thing. And I mean, it's time for us to stop showing up at the ballot box and thinking that when we hit that little dot, pull that little lever, punch that little screen, that we're making some kind of magic happen. That 3 minutes, once every 2 years if you're diligent, once every 4 years if you're not. And if you'll admit, the majority of the people you know never even looked at the ballot before they showed up. William Pitt the Younger said in 1783, "Necessity is the plea for every infringement of human freedom. It is the argument of tyrants, and it is the creed of slaves." We don't have to invent or figure out how to fix this. History and our founders have already given us that information. America was built on the fundamental principles of the natural rights of man. Samuel Adams said, among the natural rights of the colonists are these: first, life; second, liberty; third, property; together, number 4, with the right to support and defend them in the best manner they can. You have an individual right to secure your own life, your own liberty, your own property, because if you do not have that right, that inalienable right to secure yourself, your property, which is necessary to life, your liberty, which is necessary to property and life, if you do not have an individual, unquestionable right to defend yourself, you are a slave.
And this information is going to absolutely startle you, and it's going to give you hope, and you're going to feel hopeful after we leave here tonight. And people will say after, this is the first time I've really had hope in a long time. And I said, you couldn't give me any better compliment in the world than to tell me that. But folks, this is it. Hope is from God. And I am part of a message here. And there is no question that this miracle has brought me to this location and to this time, and for America to get back to its foundation. And that excites me. We're going to have an amazing night. And I'm going to share one miracle with you. First, how I even ran for sheriff was a miracle. I wasn't even thinking about that. I didn't want to do it. And my wife's parents just kept calling us and say, you got to move home and run for sheriff. And both my wife and I, for the first time, agreed that her parents were crazy. It's the first time. Okay? And so, as it progressed, my wife and I told my wife, and I said, we just got to sit down one night before we went to bed. I said, let's write all the pros and cons. Why we're not moving home and running for sheriff. Okay? And so we wrote all those down and sent them to him, and it meant nothing, especially her mom. She doesn't ever take no for an answer. She doesn't understand the word. It's out of her vocabulary. And so we really put it out of our minds. We're not doing it. Okay? And one day, and this is in Provo, Utah, where I was a cop. This book, that picture is when I was a cop in Provo. Yes, that's 35 years ago. And the proper role of law enforcement. And I put some things I put my own personal conversion story in here. Not to the gospel, but to the Constitution. I was a rookie cop, and I started studying the Constitution because of all the things I saw in government just really bothered me. And so I said, well, I'm gonna start studying my oath of office and the Constitution, and I did. And I didn't have one of these pocket-sized constitutions. I got the World Book Encyclopedia, and great big old book, and I put it in my patrol car, and I studied it and studied it and studied it. And I was totally converted to the Constitution. And so one day I was a detective at the time, and I specialized in crimes against children. And it was a horrible job in a lot of ways because I saw these things that happen to children from their own family and parents sometimes. It was just, it was horrible. And in fact, I love telling police stories, but I don't ever talk about those. And in fact, I want to get those out of my mind a lot of times. And so I went somewhere in uniform, and I don't know where it was. It must have been a parade or something. I had to be in uniform. And I got home, and I was looking at my wife, and I could tell something was on her mind, and something just hit me. And I told my wife, I turned to my wife, and I said, I'm never going to wear this uniform again. She goes, I know, that's what I was just thinking. And 3 weeks later, we moved home and ran for sheriff. And I don't know, neither one of my wife can tell you really why that happened. We didn't want to do it. And I just picked up my family, took leave from Provo, and put my kids in school in Arizona, and where I was raised as a boy, and my wife was raised there. Both our parents lived there. My dad was an FBI agent there. And we ran for sheriff. I hadn't even lived there for 12 years. I'd never worked as a peace officer in the state of Arizona or in my county. And I walked in town and worked my tail off. The whole family did, especially my wife. And I was elected, barely. And then 4 years later, 1992, I was reelected. And my wife and I would talk sometimes about why this miracle of being sheriff? Nothing's happened. What was the miracle for? So I could help old ladies across the street? Or so I could handle the DUIs? Or I could, what? I didn't see it. And then I went to this meeting in Phoenix with the Sheriff's Association, and there's only 15 counties in Arizona. It's the 6th largest state, but there's only 15 counties. And my county was the 4th smallest, but we had them this meeting. There's only 13 sheriffs there, 2 didn't show, and there's 3 agents there of the BATF. Everybody know what that is? Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. They're federal agents that oversee gun licensures and gun ownership, and they're basically tracing all our guns. Okay, and they were there, and they handed us a document that detailed our marching orders as to what we had to do to comply with the Brady Bill. And all the sheriffs are just looking at each other, and you can hear all this murmuring and cussing, and it's really it's getting bad. And these 3 agents of the BATF are kind of like getting, okay, why is everybody mad at us? And so I told the agents, I said, you 3 guys know that we don't work for you, right? They go, well, that's kind of changed now because Congress passed a law. And I said, I don't care if Congress passes 500 laws. We don't work for you. Okay? You can't pass a law of something you have no authority to pass a law on in the first place. We don't work for you. And they just kind of shrugged, and they said, well, we've done our job. These are your marching orders. Okay, see ya. And every sheriff was so against it and really mad, because in the Brady bill itself, it has a threat to arrest the sheriffs if we fail to comply. So if we say no to the feds, we can get a year in prison, a $10,000 fine, or both. And I'll show you that threat as we go along with this. I'll actually show you the threat so people don't think I make these things up. As a matter of fact, there's going to be very few times while we're together tonight that I will give you my opinions. This isn't my opinion. I didn't travel all this way to bore you with a bunch of opinions. I brought you the evidence that what my thesis is, that the sheriffs can do this. And I was just talking to Sheriff Tom Hodgson in Massachusetts about a month ago. We were talking about all the horrible things at the border, all the horrible things going on, all of the gun control, everything else. He said, Sheriff, and he knows I knew this because he's been to our conferences before. He said, it's really amazing. The sheriffs of this country can stop all of it. And he told the absolute truth. It's true. They can, we can, and we must. Because I see no other way to do it without violence. And I'm going to cover stuff that's going to be new to you, but I'm also going to cover stuff that isn't new at all. The Constitution, the oath of office, personal and individual liberty, America, American ideals, and how we get all those back is going to be a very simple solution. It's not easy to implement, but it is a simple solution. We swear an oath in God's name to uphold and defend the Constitution. We understand that oath. We know and understand the Constitution, and we do it and we apply it every day in our jobs. Did you know that the most important thing that a patrol officer can do is keep his oath of office, uphold and defend the Constitution? That's it. We put liberty first. We put American ideals first, and we keep our word to uphold and defend the Constitution. There you go. That's the solution, and it's peaceful, and it's effective. You are their boss, and you need to know what they're supposed to be doing, and you need to know what they're supposed to know. But did you realize that the sheriff it only answers to you? He has no other supervisor, and he has no other boss. You are the sheriff's boss. And every 4 years, you do a review of the work he's done, and you decide whether or not to keep him as the appointed sheriff. You appoint him. It's the electoral process, of course. But you appoint him every 4 years. You decide who your sheriff is going to be. And you know what that is? That is a definition, or at least an example, of a constitutional republic. The people choose is what makes us a republic. And we have a rule book within that republic that's called the Constitution. We get back to the Constitution, we save America. We get sheriffs to keep their oath of office, we do that tomorrow. And that's why this amazing solution is so vital and important to each one of us. After that meeting with the Sheriff's Association, I decided on my way home, I had a 2.5-hour drive to get back home. As soon as I pulled up in my driveway, it hit me. Not my decision, but it hit me. I'm going to sue my own federal government. The Clinton administration. I'm going to sue the Clintons. Oh, yay, I'm so glad. I get to sue the Clintons. You know, and I'm going to tell you, I was scared. I really was. And then I felt like Ratevia in The Fiddler on the Roof. I know we're the chosen people, but why can't you choose somebody else some of the time? And I just felt like I was just kind of, oh, you think I'm going to sue the Clintons? The wife in the house I'm going to go tell this to now is going to say, absolutely not. You don't know her. Well, you should. So I went in the house and I tell her what's going on. And she goes, maybe now we know why you were supposed to be sheriff. Folks, man, you don't want to marry a wife like that, you know? You want her to play her part better. No, go golfing. You know, this is crazy. She never faltered one iota from her decision to go ahead and do this. If she had said no, this would have never happened. Never. Okay? And so the miracle starts, and the miracles after miracles. A small town sheriff, Graham County, Arizona, takes this case for the first time that a sheriff ever did anything like this in the history of America, goes all the way to the Supreme Court, and wins. A major landmark decision. Yeah, thank you. So, restoring our Constitution as the supreme law of the land is the goal here. Thus, restoring liberty to each of us. Now, we've all been through a horrible past 16 months, haven't we? It's been absolutely horrible. And on December 8th, I got COVID. And I got it really, really bad. So I'm not doubting that virus exists. What I doubt and what I don't believe is everything they told us about it. And then what I doubted even more is that any public official had any authority to tell us how to have Thanksgiving, tell us to stay home from church, and arrest ministers and people going to church, arrest us for not wearing a mask, and stop us from going to school anymore. The destruction of liberty that happened during the past 15, 16 months has been totally and completely evil and unconstitutional. Okay, state nullification. Anybody know what that is? Did I make that up? No, I did not. But Thomas Jefferson and James Madison did. They're the ones talking about state nullification, and that the states should nullify what the federal government is doing. And say, why? We just say no. We nullify it. And look at this part in gold. States have the authority to judge the constitutionality of the federal government's laws and decrees. I thought that was the U.S. Supreme Court. We already determined they don't have time to do all that. And why is it totally proper for the states to do this? Because we formed them. We formed the federal government. And anybody who thinks that we formed the new federal government to be our boss and to tell us what to do and run our lives after we just got rid of King George III and the English Parliament, but they have very limited powers. And if they ever want to go outside that, what must they do? Read the 10th Amendment. And what must the states do? Enforce the 10th Amendment. Okay? States' rights is very key in all of this. The word in this whole paragraph here is interpose. You can see it in gold. But look at the part right above it. That state's legislature is duty-bound to interpose its power to prevent the federal government from victimizing its people. Do we really understand the doctrine of interposition? Do we know what interpose means? Okay, let me explain this. A parent interposes for the child that's getting too close to danger. Whether it's a cliff or a hole or drugs or any of these horrible things going on in our world today, the good parent interposes, puts herself in the way of the danger. The child is here, the danger is here, the parent goes here. Now, I learned this in basketball. My coach didn't say interpose, but he said, you got to stay between your man and the basket. If he moves, you move. And that's what interpose is. So the IRS comes in to abuse citizens and victimize its people. Then the sheriff puts himself in the way. And he doesn't allow it. Okay, these are the two sheriffs that went to the Supreme Court, Prince and yours truly. And why did we do it? Well, this is one of the quotes from the decision. We have held, however, that state legislatures are not subject to federal direction. Don't you wish your state legislature knew that? Your governor and everybody in the state legislature would know that? Well, you need to get a copy of that decision. I mean, how would you like to have that whole Supreme Court decision of all the highlights? It's already here. It's here. Just hand it to people. This is an amazing, and we haven't even got to the big stuff yet. This is still the innocuous stuff. Folks, this is the most amazing, powerful 10th Amendment decision in the history of our country, and who knows about it? Well, all of us in here do now. Okay. Now look what the judge said. This is Judge John Roll at the district court. He summarizes why I sued the federal government. Mack is thus forced to choose between keeping his oath or obeying the act. Watch, he doesn't call it a law, does he? Subjecting himself to possible sanctions. Remember the sanctions? Remember? They threatened to arrest us. $10,000 fine and 1 year in prison if I say no to the federal government. Folks, you remember I told you this was the Clinton administration. I sued the Clintons and lived to tell about it. Okay, and Ronald Reagan talked about the federal tax system. Man, you can't assail the federal tax system more than he does here. Federal tax system is utterly impossible, utterly unjust, completely counterproductive. It reeks with injustice and is fundamentally un-American, and it has earned a place for a rebellion. That's Ronald Reagan. And he didn't change any of that, to be honest with you. I'm glad he said this, but he didn't really do anything to stop it.
You tried to assassinate him.
Yeah, third month that he was in office. I was very much aware of that. That's part of my case here. But this is amazing. And so I ask every sheriff in this country, why would you allow IRS agents in your county so they can continue to do this kind of injustice to the American people in your county? And this is, let's be honest here, show me any Republican or any Democrat in Washington, D.C. that has done anything about this to stop this injustice. And so who is supposed to, I'm telling you right now, Sheriff Hodgson from Massachusetts was absolutely correct. The sheriffs can stop it. And this, I don't even think this would be that difficult. You let the IRS know that the Bill of Rights will be enforced strictly in your county and that you will be checking on everything they do. Wow. That will pretty much stop the IRS because there's nothing they do that's constitutional. Nothing. Okay? How long are we going to allow that criminal organization to continue to victimize Americans and we don't do anything about it? Come on. This isn't that difficult, but it takes some courage and it takes some recognition. Okay, you stupid colonists, we're going to let you have your taxes back. And then they passed the Declaratory Act. What did Paine call it? Slavery. And we've come full circle, folks. That's what Congress thinks that they can do today. Is there anything Congress thinks that they can't pass against us? Any law that is out of bounds? Even when it's guaranteed in the Bill of Rights, the list of untouchables? They can tell us how to have Thanksgiving. They can tell us where we can go, what we can do, what we can eat, where we can shop, what we have to wear. And if we can go to church. And they think they can do all that and just tell the CDC to tell us to do it. And they've never even passed legislation about any of it. None of them. And then law enforcement thinks it has some sort of responsibility to enforce it when it's not even a law. Okay? This is Thomas Paine. He's describing that, and he's describing the corruption of our government today, even though this is 1775. What signifies it to me? What difference does it make to me, he's saying? Whether he who destroys my property and kills or threatens to kill me is a king or a common man, my countryman or not my countryman, whether it be done by an individual villain or an army of them. If we reason to the root of things, we shall find no difference. Neither can any just cause be assigned why we should punish in the one case and pardon in the other. This is exactly what's going on today, and this has been done for decades, maybe even longer. And so I ask every sheriff in this country, why would you allow IRS criminality, DEA criminals, and any other federal agent to come into your county without some sort of check and balance on what he's doing? We had a bridge wash out in our county back in 1995. And the Army Corps of Engineers and the EPA wouldn't let us fix the bridge because they had to conduct their environmental impact study. And 9 months later, they still don't have it done. And the people who can't use that bridge are really getting ticked. And you know who they're getting ticked at? The county commissioners. Because they're just sitting there waiting for the EPA and Army Corps of Engineers to fix the bridge. And it's our bridge. And we're not trying to do a new bridge. We're just going to fix the bridge like it was before the flood. I know that's horrible for the federal government to understand. And so finally, the 3 board members on the county commission vote unanimously to fix the bridge. Then the Army Corps of Engineers and EPA threatened to arrest them. And they said, we're going to charge you $50,000 a day for every day you're in violation. $50,000. And they're going to arrest all the maintenance workers at the scene. Now you guys know the sheriff is in charge of bridges, right? I wasn't. I wasn't involved until what? They threatened to arrest everybody in my county that's going to fix the bridge. So I called the Army Corps of Engineers and EPA into my office. And I said, I don't know if you guys have heard that I'm really kind of a crazy kind of guy because I'm already suing the Clinton administration. And yeah, we heard something about that. Well, let me tell you something. I'm really easy to get along with. I'm a nice guy, okay? And but there's just a couple of things you're not going to do in my county. Like you're not going to arrest anybody. And if you do, I'm going to arrest you. And I don't know where you think you're going to take them after you arrest them, but you're not bringing them to my jail. But you're not arresting them at all. Because if you do, I'm going to arrest you. And so we had that little talk. And they left town. We fixed the bridge. Nobody paid a dime in fines. And everybody was happy. Because they left. Just as the separation and independence of the coordinate branches of the federal government serve to prevent the accumulation of excessive power in any one branch, a healthy balance of power between the states and the federal government will reduce the risk of tyranny and abuse from either front. When you came to this meeting tonight, did you want to know how to reduce the risk of tyranny and abuse in America? There it is. A healthy balance of power between the states and the federal government will do that. When we have local and state officials that have the courage to interpose on our behalf. And it's peaceful, and it's effective, and it's wonderful, and it's immediate. We don't have to wait for another politician to try to promise us something else. We do it together now. Do not leave the sheriff alone to do this without you. We must stand beside him and behind him. And we take back liberty tomorrow. Folks, this is real. It's an absolute solution. And the sheriff, with you standing with him and his deputies, will erect the barriers against these crises and protect us all from tyranny and restore the Constitution as the supreme law of the land. This isn't just hope. This is real. I've already seen sheriffs do that. Do you know how many sheriffs stood all across the country in the last 16 months? It's astonishing. It's the most ever. So there's been a little bit of a silver lining in all this crap because sheriffs recognized it. Sheriff Lamb in Arizona said, we're not going to shut any businesses down. Sure, we'll go do a walkthrough in these businesses and bars, restaurants, and we'll encourage people to be safe and to do what's best to protect themselves. But we're not forcing anybody to shut down. We're not their boss. And we certainly are not the masked police. Loved it when they said that.